So hi, my name is Allie Bender, and this is my transition speech. So I was born on February 8th, 1999 in Ellsworth, Maine, and I am 17 years old. I grew up in Still Harbor and have lived in the same house all 17 years of my life. And I have one sibling, and his name is Ryan, and he's a brother who is only a year older than me. And from a young age, he has helped shape me as a person. We did all the same things together and went through similar phases at nearly the same time since we were so close in age. And this meant I got to partake in some of his rougher games that he made up throughout his childhood. And when he needed someone to play tackle football with in the yard, or someone to practice his mini basketball skills in his room, or someone to nag on, I was there, and I was his person to do that with. And being involved in these activities at a young age and doing them as I grew up sort of toughened me up and made me appreciate the beauty of athletics and being active. And sitting in my room playing with dolls or getting artsy and crafty was never on my radar, and still to this day I would much rather be doing something outside or active rather than drawing or painting, even though that's what other people might enjoy. And so starting when I was about 5 or 6, my parents put us both in sports. And I played soccer in the fall and basketball in the winter as part of the Neighborhood House Youth Sports Program, and I did t-ball in Town Hill during the spring. When I was too old for the Neighborhood House, I moved on to this new program called AFSC, the Acadia Fire Travel Soccer Club, and it was just starting out and was looking for kids to play, and they ended up calling my house to see if my brother was interested. And at this point, I was probably in 5th grade, and I begged my mom to ask if I was allowed to play. And soon enough, I was in the age group below my brother with a bunch of boys and only 2 other girls. This didn't matter to me as I was playing co-ed sports for as long as I could remember, though. And I made some friends, and that's where my love for soccer developed into something more than something I did one season a year. And so starting around 4th or 5th grade, t-ball was no longer an option, and I began to learn to play softball for the Acadian Little League program. I played on that team up until I was too old to play anymore. And then middle school came along, and I played the same 3 sports for my school, the Mount Desert Mustangs. And at this point, I was still playing Acadia Fire in the winter and spring, and Acadian League on top of soccer, basketball, and softball for the school. I played all 3 sports in all 3 years of my middle school career, and I felt like that set the stage for me to begin my passion for being active. Moving out of middle school and closing in on high school, I began to involve myself more, and during the summer before I started working, I did many soccer camps, making soccer become a year-round involvement for me. Going into freshman year, I worked at the Jordan Pond House, and I was a busser and table setter, and I became absolutely miserable. I like being relaxed while being busy, and at this job, it was way too high stress for me, and I dreaded going to work every single day. And from this experience, I learned that a busy restaurant job or a crowded environment that revolves around tourism was not for me. And the next summer, I didn't have a job. I was set on not going back to the Jordan Pond House again, and there weren't any jobs available that were anywhere near my liking. They were all the same in my eyes, just a job for locals to have that keeps the tourists happy and coming back. I was refusing to go into a job that was made to make someone else happy. And so my mom made a deal with me that she would tolerate me not working if I did household jobs around the house throughout the day. And that summer was a crucial moment in my life, and I still don't regret not having a job, even though I don't have as much money right now as I probably could. This was a time for me to reflect on what life had made of me up until then, and what the next chapter would hold. I went out and did all sorts of jobs with my grandfather, and he made sure I was put to work. I helped out with the landscaping at our family business. I went up to my grandparents' camp and repainted everything the eye could see. I once spent 2 whole days on my hands and knees on a deck that was just begging to go to bed and splinter in me, and I was sanding and staining it with a small paintbrush, probably no longer than 4 or 5 inches in width. And looking back on it, I'm grateful for my grandfather for making me do this with a tool that's probably not right for the job, because it helped me appreciate the ability to do hard, hands-on work. I was very thankful for these opportunities because the minute tasks seemed simple, but it was a blast to be doing hands-on jobs like cleaning and painting and hammering a new board on a porch or rearranging shoes at the shoe store to help people out. And so this is a quote that I liked from Eleanor Roosevelt, and it says, "The purpose of life is to live it, to taste experience to the utmost, to reach out eagerly and without fear for newer and richer experience." And I feel like that's something I've sort of looked up to my entire life, and all these pictures are of me doing something, whether that's like being active or just having fun with my brother. And so where I am now. So I'm currently finding my way still. And I have subjects all spread out in the school that I enjoy more than others, so there's not one specific field that I've been leaning towards. I've enjoyed everything ranging from chemistry to geometry to digital photography, and there's not a certain broad subject that I enjoy like math or science. I'm not one of those kids that's like, I'm a math person, I love math, or I love science, or I'm definitely somebody who does art, you know? And so throughout my life, I have always wanted to help people. I wanted to be a police officer for the longest time, up until before I got my permit and license, and then all of a sudden I was paranoid that I was doing something bad whenever I saw one of them. And so I don't want people to think of me like that. So then I thought about being an EMT, and I think that would be an absolutely awesome job, and props to whoever does that. But if there was a scenario that there was a bunch of blood and gore, I don't think I could handle that as well. And most recently, I came across my dream summer job, and something that doesn't really seem like a job for me, and I could kind of care less about how much money I make. And this job is a summer camp counselor for the neighborhood house. And I've been involved in the neighborhood house for a really long time, between youth sports and going to this camp as a kid myself, but I'd always been on that one side of the program. Becoming a counselor was a life-changing experience for me, and I learned incredible amounts of valuable skills in just one summer, and I was upset that the summer was over last year because I would lose all these bonds I had with these kids. And I'm working it there again this summer, and I could not be happier where I am. This is where my drive for making a difference came into play again. I got to see these kids who come from all different backgrounds and different home environments, and even in 9 short weeks, I get to see them blossom. I see them change behaviors, I see them interact with kids they didn't interact with on the first day, and it's just amazing to see this. You see your sporty kids helping out the artistic kids during gym games, or the artsy ones guiding their peers who might not have as good an eye for the arts. And I got to see change made in these kids' lives, and I just loved it when they did something they're excited about or passionate about, and they just could not wait to go home and show their parents this. So in 6th or 7th grade, I remember we had to research jobs and possible careers for ourselves based off of our interests, and I remember coming across a physical therapist, and that intrigued me. I'd never been to therapy before, but I had a friend recovering from surgery who would always talk about physical therapy, and me only kind of going along with it, not really knowing what she was talking about. But I explored some more for that project and never thought about it again really until recently. And so in my high school career, I've done softball and I did basketball my freshman year, but I quit after freshman year because I just felt like it didn't have really a spot in my life anymore. And soon after that, I did indoor track, and so I was just, during the winter of my sophomore year, I was not doing anything and I didn't really enjoy that. And I have done soccer forever, so these are some pictures of me doing that. And so, my future. It's something that has come across my mind many times recently, and it's been something I would really like to do, is be a PT. So, Mr. Ian helped me find peace in the fact that I might not excel in math or science or music because I have like a kinesthetic and intelligence, I guess, and that's going to serve me well in my life. And see, these are some common characteristics of somebody who is kinesthetically intelligent. And so they learn by doing and would rather touch than just look, and they like figuring out how things work. They enjoy the outdoors, likes to work with hands, can't sit still for too long, enjoys sports and exhilarating experiences, likes to be active, and has a lot of physical energy, and they're athletic. And I feel like a lot of these really describe who I am as a person, because I'm a 3-sport athlete and I have energy all the time. I'm always doing something, and I'm just, even after a really long day, I might be laying in bed seemingly tired, but in my mind, I'm just ready to go and do something else. And so I did some research on this thing called kinesthetic intelligence that I really never heard of before. And these are some of the careers that people with this kind of go into, and they can be a professional athlete, a dancer, a mechanic, an actor or an actress, a performer, physical education instructor, craftsman, gardener, physical therapist, farmer, carpenter, builder, park ranger, firefighter, and paramedic. And so a lot of these on this list were things that I had been thinking about throughout my life, like a PE teacher, and physical therapist, firefighter, paramedic, all these things that I've sort of thought about. And so kinesthetic intelligence is having the capability to do things physically and having an understanding of the world by physical means, and has that mind-body union. And so one of the people I interviewed was my mother, And I thought I would talk to her and kind of ask her about my childhood and, as my mother, what she saw of me from an outside perspective growing up. And she told me lots of helpful stuff. And she said that from a young age she saw that I was different than my brother and that I was more driven and more passionate about stuff I'm doing than he is. And I have a more creative mind and I reach outside the box a little more than he does. And she knew I was thinking about going into a medical field, I guess from a young age. I don't know how she figured that out. But she assumed I wasn't going to be like a doctor or a neurosurgeon or a nurse that dealt with patients in the hospital directly, and that I was going to end up somewhere where I was happy but helping people. And so the other person I talked to was my dad, because he's in the public safety career path. He is the fire chief for the town of Mount Desert, and so every day he gets to help people and he gets to do that as a job. And so I asked him if it was beneficial, and he said absolutely. There's always pros and cons, negatives and positives about what we do. We see people happy and we see people sad. We see people thankful for us for helping, and we see people turn a cold shoulder. We see life and we also see death, and that means what I do for a job is so worth it, but there can be more risks than other people will face behind a desk. And so that kind of struck me, because as a PT, part of this can be true. People might not fully recover no matter how much therapy they do, and also people might not be appreciative of your help. And so I also talked to Christine Mild, who is a physical therapist, and some advice she gave me as somebody who's just starting out is to shadow someone. That was a big thing for her. She said get in as many things that you can do at your age and see all the different venues that you can sort of go into. And she said a PT is someone that's caring and likes to help people, interact with people a lot, and it's definitely that kind of profession. Shadow in different places, see what different venues in therapy are. In a hospital, outpatient, traveling, educational, and so many more opportunities. And so this was a big thing for me, because I didn't know if I wanted to do physical therapy directly. I didn't know if I wanted to go into sports medicine or be a physical education teacher. And so when I was talking to her, she said there's so many different branches of physical therapy than just helping somebody like recover and rehab. And you can deal only with amputees. You can deal with people who just have spinal injuries. You can be in sports medicine facilities, which is something I'm really interested in. You can just deal with kids, or you can go into education, really. And so one of the cons that she said about it, though, was that it's a lot of schooling. But the pay afterwards is kind of worth it, and it's not something that you are stuck going to school with a bunch and then having debt throughout your life. And so from her perspective, there's no really cons about it other than it's a lot of schooling and a lot of commitment. And so these are some of the schools that I've been looking at. I haven't really visited a lot of them because I'm very involved in athletics and I don't have a lot of free time during April break or February break to go to other places. And so Boston University and Springfield College and Simmons College are all in Massachusetts. And they have really good physical therapy programs, which is something that really kind of drives me to go there. And they're all away from Maine, so I can kind of experience the world a little bit, but they're not like somewhere obnoxious like Alaska or Hawaii, where I wouldn't be able to come home on long weekends and see my family. And the University of New England is in Maine, and I would preferably not want to be in Maine just because I want to be able to go into a city or another environment to sort of see where I want to be when I get out of school. But it has a really good program as well, and it's definitely something that I'm considering. And so Penn State and the University of Florida both have really good sports medicines programs, and so that's a little bit different than being a PT, and it's kind of like what our trainer does at this school, Dan, and that's sort of dealing with injuries immediately and working with kids who have sort of injuries on the sports field rather than helping them recover. And okay, and a lot of careers I've considered coming were being a gym teacher or being a trainer like Dan, but after talking to Christine, I learned that all of these things can tie together. And you can be a PT educator, you can deal with kids, you can deal with every type of patient, you can specialize in sports. And so basically I'm excited to see what the future holds, and I'm really excited to see where it takes me. And these are my sources. Sarah.
Do you know how much schooling you have to go through to be a physical therapist? Like roughly how many years?
Yeah, about 5 or 6, depending on how far you want to go. Because I know Christine did 4 because she did schooling a lot earlier in the process of education. But if you want to, you know, like run your own business or be head of like a certain department, it's probably more like 6 or 7, but on average it's about 5, maybe 6.
Yeah.
Yes.
Are you thinking about shadowing like a next year?
Yes, I have been thinking about it, but I really kind of have to work in with sports as well because I don't have every day after school available. So I'm really going to have to sort of do research on if I can and when or how flexible they can be to kind of base it around my schoolwork and extracurricular activities. But it's definitely something I'm interested in, and I've really been thinking about it because I want to, you know, get experience before going off to school and being like, this is something I want to do. So, yeah. Abby?
The PT program at the school, so if you applied next year and you like checked off PT, would you do all of it at one school? Like, would you stay at UNE for the whole program, or do you do like the last 1 or 2 years somewhere else?
I think you do your like undergrad at a certain school, and then you go off to another school. I know there's certain schools that are specifically set for a PT program. So I think what I'd end up doing would just be going to a school like Boston University where they have a really good program, but it's not like specifically at PT. And then I'd go off and sort of focus a little bit more on that subject.
Whereas maybe UNE, it's more practical training right away, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Did you look into that at all, like how different UNE is?
I have a little bit. I know they have a lot more medical fields than some other universities. I know they really focus on like nursing and traveling nurses and physical therapy and stuff like that, but it's not really a school that's in my like top 4 or 5, so I haven't really looked into it more than just kind of basic research.
Right. Did you interview Dan too? I mean, did you...
No, I did not have a chance to, but I definitely want to talk to him and Mr. Shields just on my own time. But
That's another question.
yes.
How would be, explain to maybe if you can, how the actual work of a physical therapist is itself kinesthetic?
Well, it deals with the body, which is obviously a very active thing, and it deals with like the sort of mind-body union. And so it's not a therapy where you're just kind of talking and trying to get into somebody's brain. It deals with like, you have to know like a lot of physics and know how like the body works, and like, and it's also very hands-on because you're helping people recover. So you might be like working with them to do exercises that are like actual physical exercises, and instead of sitting in an office like talking about problems or something like that. Yeah. Sarah?
My friend Liz Rowan just graduated from Springfield, and she's a physical therapist.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
you could hit her up.
Okay.
It's good to have friends in that place. Awesome. Thank you, Ali. Then, come in.